I never made the 26th year video. I wrote the script, I had ideas, but life got in the way. So the last one I made was for year 25, and somehow 2 years slipped past. You may be wondering, why do I sound weird? That's because I am an AI avatar, reading the script that the real Ruymand was gonna read. So much has changed, so much more tools to be creative, and yet I do not make videos anymore. This is the story from 25th year onwards.
Okay, so let's jump in. We're looking at this idea of lost time.
Yeah.
You know, Ruymand's annual videos.
Yeah.
He did them up to year 25.
Yeah, and then nothing for 2 years.
Exactly. Until now, with this script for year 28 called Reconnecting the Threads.
And that title itself, Reconnecting, it's already setting a tone, isn't it?
It feels very raw, very direct. It's him trying to make sense of things, which gives us this unique chance to look at the philosophy behind it all. Losing parts of your drive, maybe, or your creativity, and then deciding to find them again. It's such a universal feeling, isn't it? That sense of being adrift and needing to, well, find your way back somehow. I never made the 26th year video. I wrote the script. I had ideas, but life got in the way. And somehow 2 years slipped past. Philosophically, it makes you think about intention versus reality and the nature of time itself. Is it just linear, ticking away, or are there different qualities to it? You know, like the Greeks had chronos, the clock time, and kairos, the right moment, the opportune time. Maybe that 2 year pause wasn't just empty chronos. Maybe it held its own kind of significance, even if the plans, the scripts didn't get made. Life got in the way. That sounds like external factors derailing internal plans. And you know, sometimes those derailments, those pauses, maybe they serve a purpose, maybe unconsciously. It allows for a different kind of internal work, perhaps. And then the pressure of year 26, and philosophically that touches on intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation, doesn't it? Was the fire fueled by startup success? External validation, maybe? And then maybe that same external stuff became the pressure, the burden leading to burnout, which can happen when you're driven by what others expect or what you think success looks like rather than, well, what feels right internally. Are you living your life or the life prescribed for you? Burnout can sometimes be a harsh signal that you've strayed too far from your own path. And that leads perfectly into this big shift he describes, from chasing ideas to choosing which ones matter, and from proving myself to understanding myself. Chasing versus choosing. Proving versus understanding, yeah, it's a move inward, wouldn't you say? From looking outside for validation or direction to looking inside. Chasing ideas and proving myself, that sounds very external. Seeking approval, measuring up, whereas choosing what matters and understanding myself, that's about internal alignment, personal purpose, authenticity again. It sounds like a journey towards what the philosophers might call eudaimonia, flourishing by living according to your true nature. I think that's a really good way to put it. It's about finding that inner compass instead of just reacting to the weather outside. It's not an easy shift to make though, is it? Especially after experiencing burnout. It often takes significant effort, maybe even a crisis, to trigger that kind of introspection. And he wasn't alone in it. He mentions Natalia, walking that road with me, grounding me when I lose my balance. That idea of being grounded by someone, it speaks volumes about relationships, doesn't it? Absolutely. Philosophically, it highlights our interconnectedness. We figure ourselves out partly through others. Intersubjectivity, you know, our relationships as anchors, providing stability when we're feeling lost. Shared reality, empathy, support, they help us keep our feet on the ground, literally and metaphorically. Someone reflecting your own value back at you when you can't see it yourself. Yes, not reinvention, he's very clear about that distinction. Why do you think that specific wording is so important here? Well, reinvention sort of implies throwing out the old self, starting completely fresh, like a blank slate. Which isn't really how life works, is it? We always carry our past with us. Right. Reconnection suggests something different. It's about finding threads from your past, aspects of yourself that maybe got lost or buried, and weaving them back into the present. It's not about becoming someone else, but about becoming more fully yourself again, retrieving something valuable. Like tending a flame that's gone low rather than lighting a whole new fire. That's a great analogy. It respects your history, your journey, and the parts that still resonate. And he specifies what he's reconnecting with. That felt very concrete, it did. First, creativity, but he frames it carefully. Not for virality, but for feeling whole. It's a big statement in today's world, it really is. It's about the intrinsic value of creating, the process itself rather than the outcome or the external validation. Pure expression. Then there's structure, also reframed. Not for control, but for building a better life. A tool for enabling freedom and growth. Not for rigidly locking things down. It's a more mature view of discipline, perhaps. And our last one, reconnecting with the core self, which he defines as expressing rather than impressing. Back to that internal versus external focus again. It's about letting your genuine self show, communicating from that core, rather than performing for an audience or trying to meet external expectations. Living truthfully. These reconnections, creativity for wholeness, structure for building, expression over impression, they feel like they're addressing really deep human needs. I think they are. The need to create, the need for a supportive framework, the need to be authentic. These are fundamental aspects of, a meaningful life. Which brings us near the end of his script, that final line. It kind of sums it all up, doesn't it? It really resonates. Not for the views, not for perfection, but because the story still matters. The story still matters. Philosophically, why do our stories matter so much, even if no one else hears them? Because our stories are essentially how we make meaning. They're the narrative threads we use to understand our own lives, to connect the dots between experiences, to make sense of the chaos. We weave our past, present, and hopes for the future into a coherent narrative. That narrative gives us a sense of identity, purpose, continuity. So when Ruymand says the story still matters, he's affirming the value of his own experience, his own narrative arc, regardless of external measures like views or perfection. It's an assertion of inherent worth, my life, my experiences, my interpretation of them that has value. Full stop. It's about honoring your own journey. It's incredibly powerful. A declaration that your life doesn't need an audience to have meaning. Precisely. The act of understanding and telling your story, even just to yourself, is the meaning-making act. Looking through Ruymand's words, it really underscores that. The value of pausing, reflecting, even getting lost sometimes, and then finding those threads again. It does. It shows the philosophical weight in those quiet moments, those detours, and the conscious choice to reconnect to what truly defines you. So maybe a final thought for you listening. We live in a culture that often pushes for constant progress, right? Always forward, always achieving. The pressure is immense, but what's the philosophical value, the deeper meaning in hitting pause, in reflecting, and taking the time to deliberately reconnect with those essential parts of yourself? What parts of your own story, maybe parts you've set aside or lost track of, are waiting for you to rediscover? What threads need reconnecting in your own life? Something to definitely ponder. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into Ruymand's reflections on year 28. We hope it sparks some thoughts about your own journey and the stories you're telling.